Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz Interview Series with Kansas City Jazz Hammond B3 organist Chris Hazelton of the Boogaloo 7. We talked about the sudden passing of prolific jazz trumpeter Roy Hargrove on November 2nd, 2018 at the age of 49. He talked about his time in Kansas City with Herbie Hancock, what he remembers about it, what he meant to the jazz community, along with his enduring legacy. So please dig this interview, my friends.
But I guess what I want to know from you as a very prominent musician on the Kansas City scene, and the jazz community is kind of a tight-knit group, and jazz musicians are very open about talking about influences that affect them and their playing and what they do with their lives. So Roy Hargrove passed. Talk to me about his unwielding influence, not only on you, but on this world of jazz that's so fertile these days.
Well, the first time I heard Roy Hargrove, he was in town at the Gem Theater with the Directions and Music Tour. Herbie Hancock and Michael Brecker and John Patitucci and Brian Blade. I think I was probably 17 or 18 years old at the time, and then just hearing those guys and seeing how effortlessly they just let music flow from them was so inspiring to me as a young musician. And walking away from that concert, I was practicing so much after that, just because they had inspired me so much. And we lost Michael Brecker probably 10 years ago or so, and so now hearing that Roy passed is just another hit to kind of a sentimental part of my jazz memory, just because he was such an early influence on my playing. The thing that really has struck me throughout my career about Roy, both living in New York and living here in KC, is that he was never above the hang. I would see him at clubs all the time, just supporting, younger musicians and other musicians. And, he would sit in if it was appropriate to do so. The last couple times he was in KC, he stopped at several clubs and sat in with a lot of us local guys. He just lifted bandstands to a whole other level as soon as he stepped on, or even when he was just in the room. It was just cool to see a guy that plays at that level not be above, hanging with us guys that are not at his level.
Well, I think that's the beauty of the collective national, international jazz scene, is there's such a level of being humble, and that torch is consistently passed on from someone that's like Sonny Rollins all the way down to local cats, and that's very reassuring. But my question to you also is this. Sometimes you see some of these jazz artists fly across the arc of the sky in such a bright shade of yellow, and I wonder sometimes, because there's such talent all over the place in jazz, some of these people just scorch their whole lives, and he seems like the kind that did that. So my question is this. How did he get to such a scorching level and be so prolific at 49?
Oh, man. If I knew the answer to that one. There's an element of hard work. In any great musician, there's an element of talent, and there's an element of hard work. And then for guys like Roy, there's just another thing. I can't really put a word or anything to it. It's just that, there's just something extra that he had, in addition to all of the hard work and all of the talent.
There's all kinds of musicians that we find out, unfortunately, about that leave us, and the buzz starts real soon, and it's pretty profound for some, and with Roy, it's obviously been pretty instant. So my question is this. What kind of lasting impact do you think Roy is going to leave on the arc of jazz as we know it?
Oh, man, he's inspired an entire generation of trumpet players as well as just musicians. I mean, I think that he, throughout his career with projects like the RH Factor and his work with D'Angelo and Erykah Badu and just kind of genre-crossing things, I mean, I think that he pushed what we call jazz to a different level and into different circles that maybe it wasn't pushed before. I think he'll be remembered far throughout the music universe and not just the jazz universe.
Chris, I knew you'd be the perfect person to talk to about this. Thanks for talking about Roy. Thanks for your time, as always, for being a part of Neon Jazz. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, man.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to yet another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest players in New York, Kansas City, and spots all over the world. And thanks to Roy for his prolific contribution to the world of jazz, and to Chris for his time. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino in the iTunes Store. Visit neonjazz at youtube.com. And for everything Neon Jazz, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.